Cameron, and as Reverend West earlier welcomed you, I want to welcome you to Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ. It's good to see all of you here. It's good to see some old friends, and it's good to meet some new friends. And as we have continued to be a church here on this corner that have attempted to be engaged in some of the most pressing issues of our time, it is important that we are here to listen to one another and to lift up a vision of what this world could be and what this world should be. I'm a person that operates out of a spirit of hope. A spirit of hope. Why hope even in the midst of bad news? Well, because if you hopefully continue to participate, bad news will become good news. If we don't give up, that means. If we don't get tired, if we don't grow apathetic, if we don't go to the sidelines, we can turn bad news into good news. Because the reality is that we have to be engaged in changing the very power structures of this world. Not only in this country, but in this world. Because one of the things that many of us have been involved in the globalization struggle, the anti-globalization struggle, trying to defend people who are all around the world, trying to fend off economic greed. One thing that we realize is that we have a worldwide economic and military and political structure that is attempting to maximize the profits of a few at the expense of many. Because one thing when we talk about military and we talk about militarization, the fact is the military has always been, as I put it, the Pinkerton gods against people, average working people, indigenous people. If you remember, all of the strikes you had, man, they provided a police force that basically the industrial barons brought in. That's how Pinkerton made their name. What do you think the U.S. military is but the Pinkertons for economic interest, not only in this country, but all around the world? What do you think Congress does? Congress represents the needs of the few against the wants of the many. That's what we end up doing in terms of our policy, in terms of our military exploration and our military exploitation. You know, one of the things that is important to recognize, I was just mentioning to Medea that I've been going back and forth because there's an organization that I was a part of starting 26 years ago called the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. And the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America started in Boston. And it was dealing then with predatory loans in the community. And we ended up in a long, protracted struggle against Fleet Financial Corporation, particularly after the Bank of New England went belly up. And basically we forced Fleet into an agreement because our perspective was that in our community we could do loans better than these economic entities, these banks and these services. And that's what we've been doing for 26 years. In the midst of the meltdown, we warned folks that this economic meltdown was coming because we could see it. Most of our folks did not end up in trouble, but basically you had profiteers going through churches and communities, basically selling products that people could not pay for, and basically taking communities down and neighborhoods down, all behind this economic greed of trying to move money to the bottom line. We've been engaged in moving from state to state in a traveling, what we call Save the Dream tour, where we have roughly 600 staff people. They've been on the road for the last 6 weeks. And we went into Cleveland, for example, and we saw 30,000 people and basically offered to people the same-day solution to restructure their home loans and to get out of foreclosure, to stop auctions and to basically make people whole. Then we left Cleveland and we went to Chicago where we saw 50,000 people at the McCormick Place. And then we left Chicago and we went to St. Louis and we saw another 35,000 people in St. Louis. And now we're in Atlanta as of this day, and we're doing the same thing there as we've been doing elsewhere. Now, one thing that's sort of very interesting and almost hypocritical, that as our counselors sit down with people who are worried about being able to keep their homes and to stay in their homes, we've seen veteran after veteran some of them active, some of them just out. For folks who have had FHA loans and other kinds of VA loans and loans that were being serviced by entities like Freddie Mac, which is a government-sponsored entity. And the fact is, it had the former predators that have been beaten to the pulp, and so they're modifying loans, but you got the federal government refusing to modify loans, and they made an announcement last week from pressure from NACA that they would end up changing their policy and allowing for the modifications of loans. But think how hypocritical it is. How hypocritical it is that you can be talking about pouring all these money into saving banks and to save brokerage houses and to save services, and at the same time turning your backs on people who live in your community, who fought in your military, who held up your standards, who tried to participate the best they can. They turn their backs on. We can look at Walter Reed Hospital and see that. The fact is every time we turn around, there is this hypocritical pride